Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. And yes, Napoli have won against Udinese in a scrappy win. A win that we needed. We were in a very bad state of form recently. We've only had the Cagliari win in the past few games. But it must be said that Napoli did suffer a lot. We did not deserve the win, and we'll see that in the analysis in the minutes to come. But before we go into that, let's first take a look at Napoli's formation because there were a few surprises in there. Gattuso made 4 changes from Napoli's previous game, and the big one was Rrahmani getting his first start for Napoli in that center defense position next to Manolas. But guys, I have never seen a worse debut in my whole entire life. Rrahmani was responsible for Udinese's goal. He had a disaster of a game. He made so many mistakes, which we'll analyze, that Gattuso was forced to substitute him in between halves, and the fact that Manolas also got injured after 15 minutes meant that in the second half we had a completely different back line, as we can see here, and we had Di Lorenzo move into a center defense position next to Maksimovic. Insigne moved from left to right, and Mairui onto the left. If we look at the match stats over here, Udinese had 8 shots on target and Meret made 7 saves, and all those saves with his feet were tremendous saves. Maybe, yes, a bit directly at him, but he was ready, he was positioned correctly, and you can really see in these match stats how Napoli suffered Udinese's counterattacks because they did not have a lot of possession, but the few times that they did, they managed to make quite a few shots at Napoli's goal, and this is something that we will analyze. Why did Udinese get past Napoli's midfield so easily? But before we go into a tactical analysis, let's look at the key moments of the game. So the game started off quite well for Napoli actually, with a Fabian through pass reaching Lozano and the defender for Udinese coming in late on him in the box. And it must be said, it's ridiculous how this tackle managed to go all the way to VAR. It should have been a clear penalty for Napoli, but Napoli did eventually get the penalty. And then while it seemed that that game was going to go downhill from there because Napoli got an early lead, all of a sudden Rrahmani, under no pressure at all, decides to pass it back to Meret. It's too weak. Lasagna from behind intercepts it, runs around Meret and scores the 1-1. And from there, Napoli completely collapse. It is just Udinese running the show from that point onwards until the very end of the game, where finally Napoli, after so many Udinese missed chances, Bakayoko gets his head on a free kick and on the 90th minute scores the winner. But as I said, not an easy game for Napoli, and we will analyze why right now. Guys, I cannot analyze this game without considering Rrahmani's suicidal performance for us. So let's take a look at a few moments where he really messed up and how this impacted Napoli. So the first moment I'm going to show here is Rrahmani keeping Lasagna onside from a De Paul pass, and that is something that he can't do. He needs to be in line with his defenders. If he keeps Lasagna onside, then there is no way he's going to be able to catch him. Lasagna is one of the fastest strikers in Serie A, and in fact Lasagna got through, and it was thanks to Meret that they didn't score. And I wanted to show this situation here because I wanted to highlight how Rrahmani was tactically not on the same page as his teammates, because a lot of people can think that his mistakes were just purely technical or mental, but I'm trying to show that this was a tactical misunderstanding as well. I also want to highlight this frame here because it shows how Napoli were so bad defensively today. There's only 2 players that can harm Napoli, and that is De Paul and Lasagna. And guess what? De Paul has the ball in between the midfield and defense, and Lasagna is going through on goal. It is not that hard to just keep 2 players quiet, but Napoli did not manage to do that. And then a few moments later, Rrahmani almost compromised us again, slipping, letting Lasagna go through, and again Meret was good not to let Udinese score. but you can see here on the ground, disgraceful. You can't be playing for Napoli, slipping all over the place, letting players be onside. Very, very bad performance by Rrahmani. And obviously Gattuso did the right thing in taking him off because he could have seriously compromised Napoli's result today. Now, what Gattuso needs to do in the coming weeks and months is to try to recover Rrahmani mentally, because this substitution here on your debut is going to really hurt him. But another area that Napoli suffered a lot was in the midfield, the complete lack of cover that we had there and the complete lack of support of each other. You can see in this frame, De Paul completely free. Bakayoko's doing what he can getting back, but Fabian is way out of position, and it's almost a miracle that Udinese didn't pick out a right pass and score from this. And then there were moments where Napoli were losing the ball whilst attacking, and Udinese would counter, and Napoli had absolutely no midfield to contrast Udinese. You can see in this frame here, we have 5 players behind the ball, but then 7 seconds later, we've only got 2 players behind it, and Napoli once again had to rely on Meret to save the day. But how on earth did Udinese outrun 3 Napoli players, and how come more Napoli players didn't get back in time either? And because Napoli were suffering Udinese so much on the counter, it forced Giovanni Di Lorenzo to make a tackle in the midfield to stop one of their counters, and this yellow card that he got will mean that he misses the next game, and it's going to be a big loss for Napoli, but it's a tackle that he absolutely had to make. But it's not only a lack of midfield when Udinese recovered the ball, but also a lack of midfield when we had the ball. You can see in this frame here that Maksimovic passes the ball for some reason to Bakayoko, who was being marked by 2 players instead of passing it on to one of his defenders. But when Bakayoko got the ball, there was no one around him to help him out. There were 5 Udinese players that were closest to him. There were no Napoli players next to Bakayoko, such as Fabian, in the right position for him to pass the ball to. Obviously, he loses the ball here, and Udinese start another counterattack, and once again, Napoli were lucky to get away with it. So guys, a really, really bad performance, and this takes me to my player ratings. I'll be giving Meret a 7 for today's game, 7 for his 7 brilliant saves that he made. Yes, he was partially responsible for the Rrahmani mix-up because he stayed on his line a bit too much. But regardless, it was more Rrahmani's fault. And personally, I hope that Meret gets more space in this team. Next, a 6.5 to Lozano. He is the player that got us the penalty in the first half, always chasing every single ball, getting past defenders, drawing fouls, and without him, there would be absolutely no movement in this Napoli squad. He didn't assist, didn't score today, but absolutely essential for Napoli, and Napoli's best player of the season by far. And next, a 6 to Bakayoko. Not his best game for Napoli, but to get your head onto the ball on the 90th minute and score the goal that he did on a set piece just shows that he didn't give up. He wasn't giving up, and I felt that a lot of Napoli players towards the end of the match had already given up, but Bakayoko put his head in there and got us the result. But everyone else pretty much deserves a 5. A lot of mistakes, a lot of not tracking back, losing their men, losing out on 50-50s, really bad performance, switching off at the wrong times. But worst of all has to go to Rrahmani, and I'm being generous giving him a 4. That is a very high mark for him considering the amount of damage that he did today. And I am not sure whether Gattuso is going to play him against Empoli. Maybe the best way to get his confidence back is to put him on the field again, or maybe if Gattuso thinks that he needs another few weeks or months away from the spotlight to recover before he's put onto the field. But what this also shows is a lack of management from Gattuso, because there was so much pressure on him into this game. It's his first start in over 6 months being at Napoli, and when you build that kind of pressure, it's obvious that players could run that risk. Instead, if Gattuso had put him on much earlier in the season, then maybe Rrahmani wouldn't have felt the pressure as much. And that is partially why Gattuso gets a low rating of 5.5. He also gets a low rating because he started Fabian. I'd like to see Elmas start instead of Fabian, because Elmas at least has a bit more energy, can track back, even though Gattuso doesn't see him in that position. Demme obviously would be my favorite, but something with Demme is still not right. He only played 3 or 4 minutes at the end. What does save Gattuso from earning only a 5 is the fact that he quickly changed Rrahmani. That saved the game for us, and that he kept Bakayoko onto the field. That allowed us to score the final goal, but everything else needs working on. Napoli's game, Napoli's tracking back, and Napoli's mentality. But regardless, this was a big win. It keeps us for now in the top 5. There's Juventus Sassuolo happening later today. We'll see how that goes. But Napoli have a game in hand. Potentially, we're going to be level on points with Roma. So now everything is compromised. And this is a big, big win for us mentally. Hopefully this can be the start of Napoli recovering some of their confidence, and when Osimhen and Mertens come back, then I think we'll see a different Napoli. Anyways guys, if you've liked this video and you want Napoli to win their next games, then go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe. Make sure you also check out the Instagram official Napoli Talk. There's lots of good memes on there, and as always, Forza Napoli sempre.